Ever since its release, Palworld has been riddled in accusations. From the fact that their creatures clearly doll designed from Pokémons of the first and second generation, to even people accusing them of directly ripping 3D models from Nintendo games itself. One of the accusators being Nintendo itself, who took a bit of time before actually engaging in the lawsuit we all thought would happen, but it happened for all the reasons most of us didn't expect. I think most of us expected Nintendo to come after the creature design of Palworld, but instead they came after a bunch of different patents, and some of them are being updated like this week. And these patents aren't something old and ancient and archaic that Nintendo has been doing for ages. These are patents for stuff that are pretty new, and some of them are being altered and modified as the lawsuit goes by, showcasing how this is not about the patents itself, but actually taking a competitor out of the market. And I gotta say guys, honestly at first, I actually believed that Palworld was in some sort of infringement. I saw all those threads and posts about how the 3D models were ripped directly apart from Nintendo games, and I thought to myself, and I even talked to some friends about it, that if that was true, they were actually crazy, because Nintendo would have an excellent and strong case against them. Ever since Palworld has officially launched, the controversy happened straight away. Be it due to the fact that the designs look a lot like a ton of Pokémons, or that they are using guns and not taking themselves seriously at all. Oh, and don't even get me started on the flavor text on this game. Like, if some flavor text on Pokémon were already a little bit over the top, the flavor text on Palworld goes times 100. It's overboard. And they actually resemble a lot of the initial manga. I don't know if you guys have ever read the initial manga for Pokémon, but it's seriously insane. They depict like gym leaders using Pokémons to torture kids, and even, if I recall correctly, an Arbok or an Ekans being decapitated. So it was very graphical, the initial stages of that Pokémon manga. The game is a mix of survival mechanics, monster catching, base managed with a little bit of automation, open world with some points of interest to explore, and a very base level combat. It resembles Ark Survival Evolved a lot on the survival mechanics. The base management is very basic, with timers, and the combat does have minimal action with possible dodges and using your using your pals to fight for you. It is basically a survival open world with the Pokémon theme, something that I personally, and I believe many more, were claiming Nintendo to do for years. Well, maybe not exactly as Palworld, but something different from what they had been doing for all those years, you know? For some people there was clearly a market for a 3D open world monster catcher game, and Palworld proved that. Even though Palworld relied a lot on the sentiment that the Pokémon IP had built to reach its success, the game has proved to hold its merit, reaching top 10 positions on Steam charts for a lot of different periods of time since it had released. And guys, I can personally attest for the game's quality. I was hesitant at first to try it out, and survival games are not even my cup of tea. I rarely play them because I find them to be such a drag, but I was hooked with this one. I have over 100 hours if I take into account my Game Pass and Steam playing times. And let me be completely honest with you guys, the game is not original in any way, shape or form. They nonchalantly copy aspects of many famous and successful games. First is the obvious visual design of the Pals, that is clearly first and second generation of Pokémons, and the comparisons can be easily found on the internet. Second is Breath of the Wild's user interface references and world map, and the font also, along with how exploration and overall level and terrain design. The climbing feels almost one-to-one copy from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Third, it seems the game copies a lot of the survival logics and structuring from games like Ark Survival Evolved and maybe Valheim. And guys, I say it seems because, as I said, unfortunately, I rarely play survival games like that, so I do not have personal experience to chime in about that. And guys, I was even going to release the video and I was forgetting the fourth glaring example of copying. That Palworld map looks a lot like Elden Ring stuff. Like I know I said some of the terrain and design seems that comes straightly from Breath of the Wild, but there is also many elements that resemble a lot for those who played Elden Ring, like obviously the huge tree, some of the architecture, how do you see points of interest in the horizon, the choice of colors for some biomes, the little jump spots where you can jump to higher cliffs. So like there is a lot of inspiration drawn from Elden Ring also. But my point with this is that Palworld didn't just blatantly copy one Japanese successful game. They copied every modern game in the book, and if you think that's why they managed to be successful, you are completely wrong. We have thousands of examples of big companies that went for an idea that has been used for too long and didn't find the same amount of success, no matter what method of copying they used. Maybe they copied some mechanics but changed visual IP, maybe they chased a trend or monetization method with no justification other than money, maybe they spent billions of dollars thinking they had the next Fortnite in their hands, only for that completely unoriginal idea to explode in their faces. Maybe they are just copying their old games and pasting it again next year and hoping their audience won't get tired. Maybe they are copying a successful genre like the Souls games and they just want to make a different spin of their ideas. It doesn't matter where we look, the gaming industry will always have a ton of examples that would be divisive among people. Whether they are justifiable, meaning they use a reasonable inspiration to create a new iteration, or whether they cross a moral, legal, and or ethical lines. Personally, I feel like Palworld did, play too close to the sun, but my opinion on that is to regards to the creature's design, right? There are some elements that people have the comparisons that feels like they took a lot of inspiration, almost to the point of you think, well, maybe they can be sued for that. But the reasons they are actually being sued are far different, and Nintendo doesn't just want them like to remove the parts that are infringing on their patents and pay restitutional damages, Nintendo wants the whole studio to close down and the game to be removed from everywhere. This is clear, the message is clear, they are effectively trying to remove their opponent from the market. Nintendo filed for a patent infringement lawsuit, and that's where things get a little bit tricky. And by a little bit, I mean a lot tricky. Patents in game have been known to basically be a stigma. They never protect small-time devs from infringement and might be used by big companies to limit or even intimidate other studios into not even trying anything. But as one user aptly pointed out on this site, imagine if id Software patented first-person shooter mechanics in a way that prevented any other FPS to exist, or if Capcom patented side-view fighting games. Gaming evolves with new games trying similar stuff that the old games did, but with an idea that they think it's different or something a little bit different that they think will justify people pivoting to this new game. And don't get me wrong, guys, I love Nintendo as a developer to some extent, not really as a customer, but Nintendo have output great games for, 3 decades now. I love a lot of their design philosophies. Their executives do not have a pay difference as high as compared to Western executives. If I recall correctly, I'm pulling this number out of my head, but I think Nintendo executives earn 10 times less than Western executives. So, and also, Nintendo executives have taken pay cuts in the past for when they didn't meet the expected expectations for that quarter, for that year. So they have, acted with much more honor, if I may add, than compared to many Western developers. Guys, this is ludicrous. I don't know if you guys remember, there were that time that Monster Energy drink was suing games. I mean, they will sue games that have Monster in the name. I think I can pull up more than one example here. So it's insane when companies use this type of patents. Like, really? Are you really claiming that you won the world, the word Monster? Seriously? You guys recall I talked before about questioning if Palworld design decision could be morally and ethically wrong. And even though Nintendo now claims that they are legally in the wrong, it feels these lawsuits, just like Monster Energy lawsuits on games, are ethically wrong, you know? They are leveraging fine prints and patents that are questionable at their existence to pressure other companies out of any success that is close to their success. And you know what's worse about this, my guys? I'm sure if Nintendo actually put the time and effort and the money to have a team solely focused on developing an open world 3D experience that, you know, isn't exactly their regular Nintendo gameplay, you know, maybe with some puzzle, Metroidvania mechanics that uses the Pokémons you catch to actually unlock new stuff, to complete puzzles based on their elements, you know, or to just show off and have your Pokémon following you, maybe you can mount them and do stuff like that. We have been claiming for that for years, but Nintendo has been slowly adding this to the Pokémon IP. I myself have been craving to play a 3D open world using Pokémons to explore the world and having Metroidvania mechanics locked behind specific Pokémons. But Nintendo and Game Freak have contained themselves into releasing the same games and some spin-offs, but nothing ever big with their IP. I don't know if these strategies were to try and control the market until they actually wanted to release such a game, but taking so long to actually do anything relevant with their IP outside of the same rehearsed main games they have been releasing proved to be a shot in the foot, because now they have a competitor that has released something that they haven't done with their IP, and they didn't do a bad job. Actually, the game hooks you pretty good. Maybe it's not a cup of tea for everybody, but there is enough content for you to have a lot of hours of fun, especially if you are playing with friends. Don't get me wrong, I've played plenty of spin-offs of Pokémon games, from the famous battle stadiums to that maybe not so known Explore theme game where Pokémon speak and you control only Pokémons. But with Nintendo teams doing countless of Legend of Zelda games, they missed on an opportunity there to incorporate some of the exploration and adventure mechanics and play too safe on their already established game mechanics. And the cost? Someone there and trying doing something different that they didn't. And if they have done this a little bit more different, maybe Nintendo wouldn't even have any grounds to sue them, as if they are already fiddling around vague descriptions of dubious patents that describe things seen in other games. And the objective of the lawsuit is clearly not to make Palworld pay for their infringement and remove stuff that Nintendo believes are infringing on their intellectual properties, but to actually decommission the game completely, proving it's more about removing competition than pointing out what parts they copied. And as many articles have pointed out, the problem with patent in games is that it prevents similar mechanics from being used and evolve. Games, as pointed out by our lovely internet user, evolve with time, picking stuff from other games and trying their own original spins and takes on that game. And I agree, some games will try to slime their way to grab a quick buck, completely copying other people's work. But the case here with Nintendo seems to be about outreaching their claims as far as they can and update patents on the fly while the lawsuit happens without even having a problem with other big titles that do the same things they are accusing Palworld of. The ruling is not out yet on whether Japanese courts think Palworld is guilty of infringing Nintendo's patents, But even if they are found guilty, it still does not look like a cut and dry case. Nintendo is using vague and new patents that are easily in a gray area, if not outright invalid for the gaming industry, to pressure an opponent that, while many can agree might be liable to some damages, doesn't really call for the complete closure of the studio. The message is clear: Nintendo is using these patents to go after a big rival, and this alone might steer many indie games away from trying anything on the monster catching department ever again. Not to say things about games that have survival and exploration mechanics that Nintendo are also using to sue Palworld. If Nintendo wins, it gives precedence for them to sue other companies, and that alone might be enough for thousands of devs to steer away from the mechanics used in this lawsuit. So that's it, my guys. What is your opinion on this theme? As you can see, I clearly have a position, you know, and I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Nintendo is in the right over here? Do you think Palworld is in the right? Do you think it's a little bit 50-50? You think some of the stuff like the sphere, you know how both of them use spheres, so maybe you think that the spheres really are too close to what Nintendo and Game Freak have been doing. Maybe you think even the monsters designs is too much. What are your takes on Nintendo updating these patents on the fly, on the go, while the lawsuit is happening? Clearly they are using this just to attack their opponent. So do you think this is fair? Do you think this is how these things should go? Do you think there should be a time before the patent establish itself? Do you even think that games should have patents on gaming mechanics? Tell me in the comments below what you think. I hope you have enjoyed this topic. It's very controversial. I don't think this is the last we will be hearing about this subject, and I will see you guys on the next gaming news. I hope you have enjoyed. Please leave a like, subscribe, follow for more, and bye bye, my guys. Have a great week, and please don't sue me.